Well, hello there. Thanks for joining me. I am Dr. Jen, and this is my life as a landlord. Last week was the first episode in a series that I have created to educate you on what special groups I've gotten myself involved with, namely the Small Business Regulatory Review Board and then the Speed Task Force. Now, if you don't remember, the Small Business Regulatory Review Board is a board. It's kind of a nerdy board where we get together and the governor has appointed different people from different businesses and different locations across the state to review rules, not laws, but rules coming up that impact small businesses. Now, because I'm on the Small Business Regulatory Review Board representing Maui, that board had one seat on the task force for simplifying permitting for enhanced economic development speed, simplifying permitting for an enhanced economic development. So Speed Task Force. And so I am the Small Business Regulatory Review Board person that is on the Speed Task Force. So that's how that works. And if you missed last week's show, that all is, how that all works, what that's all about. But today is episode 2 in the series of 3, and I'm going to zero in on who in these groups who are actually trying to help, how we're helping them, and then next week we'll talk about literally how to approach a building permit application, one of the most difficult places on the planet to get a building permit, and that's Maui. So today's title is People, Permits, and Pigs, and that's the order I'll present it. The people we're helping, who is involved in the permits, and then the pigs designed to create action items and recommendations. And so let's start with the people. So as we go through a lot of these committee meetings, all of the task force meetings, all of the sheer volume of stuff that we've been going through, it all comes down to two things: the people, but also then the permits. What is it that the people are trying to do, and what is it that they're trying to build? And so here's what I've come up. This is my spin, and we haven't actually pushed it forward to the task force yet, but that's coming. So the people, in my mind, there is simple and sophisticated. And what I mean is, when we're talking about building permit applications, they're either simple applicants, meaning one person, they're only going to they're only going to apply for one building permit their entire life. This is it. Unfortunately, most of Lahaina, rebuilding most of Lahaina, is a simple applicant. And they're traumatized, quite frankly, right? And then you've got sophisticated. Sophisticated applicants are people like me, people who have done more than one building permit, that are regularly applying or around this industry. And of course, that would include me. So simple or sophisticated. Now, that's the people, but it also depends on what you're trying to build, right? It, I would argue that the permit that you're applying for, whatever the structure is that you're trying to improve, whether it's retaining wall or a hotel, whatever it is, that is also simple and sophisticated. And so the people are simple and sophisticated, the permits are simple and sophisticated. So a simple permit, I would say, is a single family home, maybe new construction, nothing major triggered, so not near one of the coastlines, not in the SMA, no coastal zone management. You're not having to do things like work with historical artifacts. That's definitely coastal zone management. It's not always linked to coast stuff, but we'll talk more about that when we get into the pigs coming up. But that would be more simple. So you're adding a deck, adding something, just, adding a bedroom potentially could be simple. But if you're maxed out on your septic system and you want to add a bedroom, that instantly shoves it into to more sophisticated, right? And so simple is a relative term. It just depends. And complex could be anything else, anything not simple. And I know that's kind of a weird way to put it, but anything that is not sort of cut and dry, if that makes sense. So if you're doing something that requires additional SMA, archaeological inventory, a high rise on Oahu, a subdivision, there's just so many different things. And sadly, the majority of the permits that I see are more sophisticated. So the worst part is that you have simple applicants with sophisticated permits. And that's where everybody gets really confused. There's a lot of miscommunication, and that's kind of what we're trying to untangle a bit. Now, for those of you who are watching on YouTube at My Life as a Landlord, I am going to share screen so you can see what this task force is all about. And of course, all of these hyperlinks are in the show notes. So I've got a bunch of hyperlinks in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hyperlinks. And I'm not going to go through every single one in detail, but so this is the first hyperlink. If you wanted to see, this is where the Simplifying Permitting for Enhanced Economic Development, the SPEED Task Force is. These are all the members, and I've gone through the members and kind of their perspective and where they are at in the first episode. So if you want to know more about that, go back and listen to last week's episode. And then the Permitted Interaction Group, or the PIGs, which I hate this acronym, the PIGs. So there were 3 PIGs this round: building permit, SHPD, which is the State Historic Preservation PIG, and also known as Chapter 6E, so 6E or SHPD. And then this last one is Individual Wastewater Systems, or Department of Health, DOH, right? And so you're going to see I'm on all 3 of these. Here I am, and I'm up here as well. And so if you want to know more about this, you can scroll down. We do have, I'm recording this on December 12th, and so the PIGs have concluded, and I'm going to talk about the PIGs next, but coming up, there is a report back to the task force, because remember, the task force is 34 members, and the PIGs are less than half of that. And so half of the task force has not seen anything that the PIGs have been doing yet. But if you want to see, these are all hyperlinked. I'm going to go through some of these today. Board packet 1 was from the original meeting in September 11th. I am going to go through some of these today with you, but just so you're aware on how that works. So let's talk about each one of these PIGs. Yeah. So let's start. How did I have this? Let's start with SHPD. Okay. So the 3 PIGs are they, first of all, they met weekly for about 7 weeks. Every week we had a meeting, so at least 1 hour. Most of them were 2 or 3 hours, and I did track my hours on all of this. And yeah, so they're all somewhere around 15 hours, give or take. In the SHPD one, so this is Chapter 6E, this is the State Historic Preservation PIG. This one had 13 members. And let me shift to the presentation that Jessica Puff, who is the Deputy Director for the State Historic Preservation District Division. Actually, it's known, I don't keep saying it's district, it's known as SHPD, right? That's how they say it, as SHPD. Now, this is the presentation that they gave on the first task force meeting. It's 25 slides. It explains why this is even in Hawaii. And so this is really fantastic. And it's got a photo of Iolani Palace. It's got a photo of some of the military items that have come in, why this is all here, what the National Historic Preservation Program's in, and then Hawaii also has historic preservation programs. And this is where 6E comes in, right here, is the state historic preservation programs. Now, one of the things that they had explained on here was, in this presentation, was that wait a minute, what is this here? Hang on a second. So it's talking a little bit about historic registries, declaration of intent, grant funding, tax credits, certified local government program, but there is more in here, and there's photos of Maui in here, which is kind of cool. They go through this flow chart, and I'm just deliberately going fast, and they explain how they do their reviews, but they also talk about the challenges in SHPD and why this would even be. So if you have if you're near a coastline, or if you are near historic artifacts, or you have iwi kupuna, which is ancient bones, and it doesn't have to just be ancient human bones, it can be animal bones as well, from my understanding. So when you have a likelihood that you would have historical artifacts of any kind on your parcel, then it would trigger a SHPD review, and that would likely include an archaeological inventory survey, meaning all of the archaeologists come together and it's this big long report where they basically overlay and they say, here's what we expect you to find. Or maybe there's a cemetery that was in the neighboring property that they knew would continue into your property kind of thing. And so having this survey is quite valuable. So, but it can also be very frustrating, right? So, but this is why I wanted to bring this up. I'm on slide 19 for the SHPD, and it says challenges, complete submittals. This is one of the biggest things that everyone said across the board in all of the counties and everybody's building permit application was that the submittals are so either incomplete or low quality that it takes time to go back to the applicant to say, hey, we need more information, or you need to improve this, or you need to add notes, or whatever. But complete submittals, accurate information, timeliness of responses for everyone, including the applicant. And it was interesting to see that there were a lot of instances where the applicant often was the one that was causing the delay, not the county, right? This is interesting. Negotiating mitigation and or project scope to avoid effects, and then the average review time is 56 days. There's been a lot of discussion about negotiating mitigation for historical artifacts. But one of the things that they had talked about, and it doesn't say it here, I'm actually kind of surprised. In the original presentation, they explained that, where is it? I know this is in here. That the SHPD cannot stop development. You just have to merely evaluate it. And I don't think that's the right words. That's okay. We're going to keep going. In fact, I'll go back down to this one because I want to show you this. Process, this, assessing, district boundary amendment. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep going just for the sake of time. So there was a lot of discussion about this, and then I'm going to go through the next two pigs, and then we're going to talk about what the pigs came and what the next meeting is all about. So for the next one, the next pig, we'll talk about Department of Health, which is the individual wastewater system. Now, this is a state group. The Department of Health is actually a state agency, and this pig consists of 13 members, and a lot of discussion was about the cesspool conversions. There's over 86,000 cesspools in the state of Hawaii that are mandated to be converted to septic or something else, like a regional treatment system, but off the cesspools by 2050, 2050. So this is the original presentation from September 11th from John Nagato. I think I'm saying his name right. But this is pretty interesting how this all works, about what is all this and how do you actually submit this. Now, it's not you. The person that would submit this would be your mechanical engineer, who's ever doing your septic design that would include running the permits. And so these are screenshots from the DOH website on how they actually do this applications. Now, there's different scenarios. I'm not going to go through all the different scenarios, but just so you're aware. So if you have a new building and a new individual wastewater system, that's one different application. And I happen to be in that. There's two permits that I'm working on. But then there's also what happens if there's an existing building renovation, like an existing home that you want to add a bedroom, right? And you're already on a septic. And so then there's another question. And this is exactly what this little pop out is. So existing building renovations can include a kitchen, bathroom remodel, a door, a window remodel, adding a bedroom, adding floor area, adding an ADU, adding a bathroom. All those would impact the septic design, and including a cesspool conversion, which is the third application scenario. And then no building or construction renovation, just a septic, just an application for a septic. Now, he went through in detail on how this all works, but at the end of the day, Department of Health gives out two permits, the approval to construct and the approval to use. Approval to construct and approval to use. At the end of the construction, the engineer is supposed to come back out and say, yes, Department of Health, they've installed it as per plans, and actually get the second half of it, the approval to use. And this came up on the Big Island that there's whole neighborhoods of people that never got the second approval to use, and they've been in use for years, sometimes decades. So if you have a question about how this all works, this is definitely a flow chart for you. Please make sure you're looking through this. Um, and again, the hyperlink is in the show notes here. And this is what happens. I appreciate when they put in here, what happens when your lot doesn't fit any of this? Like what happens if the topography of your lot doesn't allow a septic, field or a drain area, or it's on blue rock and you can't put in a tank. Like, what do you actually do? And so they talk about different variances. Now, Department of Health, because public safety is part of it, and it's all talking about health and human safety, greater benefits to the public. This is a hard ask. This is a very hard ask, but it's there. And this is the question that you can ask: is going, what do we do when? Now, the different process considerations, I appreciate when they put this in. So homeowners must hire a licensed professional engineer and a licensed contractor. So you have to have everything in, you have to report everything back for, again, approval to construct and approval to use. Delays can result if there's disagreements on the interpretation. And then there's also another issue is that if a county does not issue the building permit within 1 year of the approval, which I'm actually coming up on myself, but construction of the IWS does not begin within 1 year of approval, or the county revokes the building permit associated with it. So again, you have to get both the approval to construct and then the approval to use. And if things don't actually move along, you can request an extension for either. But there's got to be some kind of extenuating circumstances. So this is John Nagato. He's the one that had given the presentation. He's the one that I'm in all of these meetings with. And I've asked him questions quite often, just basically saying, why is this? How does this work? So poor John, right? Poor John. He's had Dr. Jen pelting him with questions. That's the way it is. Okay, third pig. I'm going to switch to the third pig right now. So this is, actually, I'm lying. So building permits. The building permits, this is everything vertical in a building permit application. So this is everything. So all of the ground entitlements, the easements, the archaeological stuff, everything is already done. This is just going vertical. This is just the build of the structure itself. So we're talking about building codes, we're talking about safety, electrical, plumbing, all of that. So in this pig, I'm going to reference two presentations that were given, actually three, that were given at the original September 11th meeting in the state capitol. So this is the first one. This is the County of Hawaii. So this is Big Island. Their permitting software is called EPIC, Electronic Processing and Information Center. So it's all online. And what they do is they have one permit at the end of this. They issue one permit. I can't even believe it. So it's building, electrical, and plumbing all in one. They don't have three applications, and it goes really quickly. Because think about it, electrical, plumbing, and building, they're all looking at the same plans. They're all looking at the same plans. So they only issue one permit. So as soon as you have your one permit, you can go. So it talks about this. You submit your application online, intake completed, required forms and a fee, then planning review, zoning, SMA, and this one, multi-agency review, which includes fire, Department of Health, final check if required. They call this one bite at the apple. They're trying to just get it through in one take. But again, it depends on how good the submission is, right? So then it goes through all of this, and then it goes into the detail of what you might need, required construction documents, submission standards, and they're pretty transparent on what they want in their plans. So that's pretty interesting to see straight up front. So that's the Big Island. Okay, so let's go to Kauai. Kauai also did a presentation about how they work. They are also online. They were actually the first one to be online, completely online in the state of Hawaii, which is kind of cool. And so they've got this presentation here. So the different codes, they have different aspects of how they do it. They do a planning department, and then their building division is separate. In most places, like on Maui, they're together. In Kauai, they're separate. So planning is separate than actually building. It's very different how different areas do this. So you've got planning department, construction building division, which is the construction part, and then how they do their applications. They've got their standard forms and how it all works out. So you can see, so this homeowner and family owned business, again, remember I mentioned that you've got simple and sophisticated. So if you've got homeowner and family owned business, this is likened to more simple applications. However, when you get down to developers, they're more sophisticated, whether it's a sophisticated applicant, sophisticated permit request. Kauai uses Central Square, and they talk about how they actually do this and their workflows. Again, lots of flow charts, and then how it all gets reviewed and ultimately issued and approved. And this is talking again about septic conversions and their real property assessment. Okay, so the next one, so there's 4 counties in the state of Hawaii, right? Maui, Big Island, so Hawaii, Kauai, and then County of Honolulu, right? County of Honolulu. So I'm going to go to the County of Honolulu, and we're going to talk about the trends in Honolulu building permits. Now, this is for the last 20 years, and I'm bringing this up because there's a lot of interesting points that are made in this. Now, some of this will jump around because remember, Oahu has high rises and stadiums and trains and all kinds of things that none of the other islands have. So it can kind of get a little siloed, but it is still interesting how we go. So trends in Honolulu building permits. This is from June of this year. And this report, again, is hyperlinked right in the show notes. So if you've got a question, take a look at it yourself. So this is talking about the numbers of the building permits that are in motion. Status of the last 20 years of building permits, almost 400,000. And then the money that was collected, the value of the permits, accepted value of the permits. And there is one screen I want to get to that I included actually in my debrief of this. There's a ton of source documents, and I love when we have actual research that is backing things up. But it is all about what has occurred when, oh, maybe I'm in the wrong document. That's fun. Okay, you know what? I'm going to open up this other one. Task force items. Okay, bear with me a second here because I want to show you this. This is the initial meeting debrief that I did. Let me switch the stop share to this one because I have a recurring debrief. So if you want to be on that email list, just let me know. But I did an immediate debrief of the initial task force meeting. And this was the screen I was looking for. Okay, so let me try to blow this up as big as I can get it. So this was what I was looking for in the Honolulu one. Okay, so this is the County of Honolulu reported additional frustrating factors for building permits, such as code changes. And so what they've done, code changes, but also ordinance changes, meaning council has changed something. There has been some kind of knee jerk that has moved. And so this is the backlog of building permits by month since 2010. And they note in here, every vertical line in this whole thing is something has changed. And so as you go through this, you can see from 2010 to current that it has definitely been an upward trend. Okay, and then as we go through here, you can see there's a backlog. This has been an ordinance for ADUs, is this pink line, and then it goes on and on and on. This one was about monster homes, and then it jolted again, and then you've got monster homes 2, monster homes 3. Changes in building code adoptions there's always a bit of a hiccup when you've got new building codes because now not only do the architects and the applicants have to adjust based on the new building code requirements, the reviewers also have to learn it too. So it's sort of like shifting from 3rd gear into 4th gear and going, hey, wait a minute, I don't know. And so there's a bit of a lull before you get your momentum back up. But this is a picture of the backlog. So over the last 15 years, the backlog has gotten worse in the County of Honolulu. So I wanted to share that with you. And we'll go back to some of this here in a second. kind of interesting. I know I'm a big nerd, but that's all right. Okay, so also brought up in these initial presentations is the role of technology, specifically AI, and the biggest comment that everybody made everywhere was the staff shortages, that the cost of living in the state of Hawaii, regardless of the location that you are in, regardless of the agency, that people are fighting over skilled employees. They're trying to get the right people, they're trying to get the right engineers. And actually, there was even a bit of infighting between counties and states going, hey, we were trying to get an engineer, we got an engineer trained up, and then the state hired him. And they didn't even have to move. They just moved to the state and they stayed in their same house and their family was fine. So this has really become a bone of contention because you've got a very hard skilled plan reviews that people are trying to do physically in the state. And everybody's saying, well, why can't you use AI to do initial plan reviews? Why do we have to use people physically here? We do want to employ people, don't get me wrong. But then there's a question of what about the next bit going, why do we have to do everything here? Why can't we do it online, right? And so there's a couple different questions there. So one of the things that was brought up was in each of these pigs, they asked all of the board members, all of the pig members to create recommendations. In fact, let me screen share what the recommendation looks like. Okay, let me show you what the SWAT Speed Task Force recommendation looked like. It looks like this. Okay, so Speed Task Force recommendation and SWAT. Now this is like in micro print here, but you don't need to read what it is. It just says recommendation summary, and then the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats, and then additional information. And so it's just a one pager, right? And so this is what they wanted everybody to do. So they say, enter a short and clear title for your recommendation, strengths, weaknesses, and then these are internal factors. So why they would be good, external factors, opportunities, threats, and then additional information. Now, what I did for all of these was I would make a recommendation, but the recommendations were because I was meeting with people. I so specifically went out and said, okay, you guys, I have a seat at the table. Help me get some of your recommendations forward. Even if I didn't completely either agree or I just said, you know what, somebody wants to talk about this, let's bring it up. And so we did. We did. But what I always did was every time when there was a recommendation, I said, somewhere, somebody has already made this conversation. So in the additional information in every single one of my recommendations, I would research where this has already been done or where they're actively fighting this. And here's a perfect example, and it's ironic because my phone is ringing from New York. And the reason they're calling from New York is because Long Island, Suffolk County, New York has cesspools, just like the state of Hawaii. And they are fighting a cesspool conversion, just like the state of Hawaii. So I have reached out to Long Island and said, hey, you guys are fighting the same fight we are. Why aren't we comparing notes? And so this is where I am looking at this going, if we need cesspools, if we're in the battle, then why can't we learn from them? So this is, and my phone just rang because I've been emailing them already. So I created a lot of recommendations. So let me go through and let me screen share the recommendations. Where are my recommendations are here. Stop share. Okay, here it is. So I did a total of 20 recommendations. And in fact, I'm just going to go through the summary. I can go into the recommendation form if you want, but honestly, I think at this point, I'm going to leave this as an attachment in the show notes. This one is not online, but you can see the 3 pigs are across the top. So 6E is SHPD, BP is building permit, IWS is Department of Health, individual wastewater system. This was the date I submitted it. And then this was my recommendation itself. Now, some of this are kind of tutti frutti, like create a guiding principle for building permits, like keep Hawaii families together in Hawaii, meaning why do we have to just be so granular? Now, this is very tutti frutti. A lot of the county and state staff said, you know what, we're bound by policy and we can't just override it because we have a guiding principle. Okay, rightly so, but we had the conversation, right? You get it. Third party assistant for a fee. Again, I'm looking at the simple versus the sophisticated applicant. Put staff first, make it a better working place, and maybe people will want to work there. But again, it's got to be competitive wages as well. Let go of the small stuff, empower people. This is, again, staff minded. You have all these incredible skilled people. Let them be skilled. Create a 30-day application clock that closes the permit without high engagement from the applicant. Remember, there's a lot of things that come back to the applicant, and if the applicant doesn't respond, close it. Now, this admittedly came from a county employee. This was wildly unpopular. I don't even agree with this one, but I threw it in so that they could, there's got to be some better way to communicate with people about their applications, because what happens is they go, oh, the county won't give me my permits, the county won't give me my permits. But if you look back in there, the county responded to your consultant, your architect, your engineer, your contractor, somebody, and they've been waiting on you. So it looks like the county is the bad guy, but actually they're getting a bad rap. And this happens a lot. So this one, we talked about development cost charges. This was about a concern regarding infrastructure. As we start building more structures, there needs to be infrastructure growth as well. Standardized forms, templates, and checklists. Apprenticeships. This was specifically brought up regarding septic applications, that even when you get your septic approval to construct, if there aren't enough licensed plumbers to actually install this, then what are we doing? You can't, even if you have the permit in hand, you can't actually install it. So that was a discussion there. One collective building permit. This is because of the Big Island, and the Big Island is doing it. So one collective permit for building, electrical, and plumbing. Implement by right permitting, allowing development projects to proceed without requiring discretionary review. And so there was a lot of discussion about self-certification. Implement AI for automatic calculations, general plan checks. Yes, we talked about that in all three pigs. And then potentially for prior to county ordinance or changes, review a county chief architect or qualified third party, because there is a greater impact. And there's lots of examples of this. Feasibility check for a fee. This is, hey, I want to build a cottage. Can I even do it? Sometimes based on zoning or based on your setbacks or based on something, the answer is no. So before you spend tens of thousands of dollars on an architect and plans, just do what I call a feasibility check. Now, this got picked up in several different ways, but yeah. And then the last ones typically were all in DOH, Department of Health, for individual wastewater systems regarding the cesspool conversions. So this was incentives for homeowners to convert, incentives for counties to create regional wastewater treatment plants, focusing on cesspool conversions in areas upstream or nearby aquifers and coastlines. That one was another developer that was pretty good. Asking why there is even a need or requirement for cesspool conversions to septic at all, because they're both injection wells. That one was answered. And then there were three more. Implement additional conversations. Again, we still have 25 years to the 2050 deadline for the cesspool conversion. And so it was like, keep the conversation going. And then there was a big pushback, rethinking, recalculating, rejustifying the 5-bedroom limit for septic systems and redefining bedroom-like room. In fact, during the PIG meeting, in fact, I'll add this. During the PIG meeting, there was a bedroom presumptive guide. In fact, here it is, where they came out. So this was during our PIG meetings where they said, hey, if you want, you can either the homeowner or the engineer, somebody can declare that this is not going to be a bedroom, right? And so this was the thing, is that previously Department of Health had denied different things because they had pantries, walk-in closets, different dens, different areas going, that's a bedroom-like room, so you're over your bedroom count. And it's like, well, people could sleep in the hallway, like, come on. And so this is brand new. I will put this as a hyperlink as well, or as an attachment as well. So let me stop sharing there. Okay, so as we wind down today's episode, last week I introduced you to the Small Business Regulatory Review Board and the task force in general. And I went over where everybody's located, what the role is, the staff, elected official, applicant. But today's episode was all about the people, namely the people who are involved both on the task force itself, but who's impacted by whatever the result of this task force is. Simple, sophisticated lawmakers, staff, building permit applicants of all time. It's all about the people, of course. And in today's episode, which is the second of series of 3 shows, I reviewed the most updated information about the task force, including the updated speed task force presentation that's coming up for Chair Iligan. So if you wanted to see that, please go back and look at some of the hyperlinks. But I also did a deeper dive on who is behind all of the permitted interaction groups, namely Department of Health, SHPD, which is the State Historic Preservation Division, and the folks behind the building permits in each county. I actually dove into Honolulu, Kauai, and Big Island. I am waiting. I'm not doing Maui yet. I'm doing Maui next week. But since I'm on all 3 of these pigs, I also reviewed the 20 recommendations, just a gloss over, that I submitted as a part of my role on the task force. And all these are hyperlinked in the show notes if you want to know more. In the last episode in next week's series, I'll review the final report and recommendation back to the task force from each of the pigs. I'll go through Maui County's presentation, which is quite extensive, and it has this incredible checkerboard of how you do a building permit. And then I'll show you what the thing called MAPS looks like, which is the program that you submit for building permits on Maui. Don't forget to subscribe to My Life as a Landlord for more expert advice and rental stories from all over the place. We're recording today in Maui, and I always ask that why, because real estate takes you places. Where do you want real estate to take you? Join me next week for episode 205 for the final episode in the series about Maui building permits. Next week is our conclusion, Maui's 56 ring building permit circus. I will see you there.